Hey, IOStax here. Before we get into this video, I would like to quickly mention my coaching services on sandbox.gg. If you don't have anyone to practice your mechanics with, or you think that your aim technique may be lacking, you can get a mechanics session to work on your flaws. Getting a coaching session also gives you the opportunity to contact me even after the session on Discord, so I can help you out in the future as well. The reviews speak for themselves. Now, before we get into this, I would like to share some of my experiences and make it very clear that everything I am talking about today is my personal experience, as someone who made it to Grandmaster multiple times and currently coaches a Tier 2 team. Back then, before the game came out, I used websites like aimbooster.com or aim400kg.com to prepare myself. This did help, however it wasn't the same as actually aiming in a 3D perspective. Eventually I switched to Anabots, and while they did give me really good results, after weeks I realized that my aim overall didn't get any better. It would warm me up really well and the short-term results were good, but I never got good at baseline aiming. It didn't teach me movement, it didn't teach me how to aim reactively instead of just predicting movement. Eventually I realized that playing against real players is best, so I did a lot of custom games with friends. This helped out a shit ton, especially with my movement. After that, I started using third-party apps as well, but I will go into that later. First, let's talk about the difference between predictive aiming and reactive aiming. Predictive aiming is about memorizing the speed of your crosshair. Moving your mouse at 5 centimeters a second moves your crosshair a certain distance on the screen per second. This works really well against targets that are moving in a straight line and don't change directions very often. However, it only works if the target is in a very specific condition. Now, keep in mind that this only applies to hit scan, not projectiles. Projectiles are 99% predictive aiming. The two conditions are: his movement speed is regular, so no Tracer or Genji with their passive movement speed bonus and no Lucio speed aura, and their distance to you remains constant. These situations aren't always happening, however, so you will be prepared for some situations but be completely unprepared for others. Movement, predicting, and reacting go hand in hand when wanting to aim successfully. What we really need to perform in-game is reactive aiming. While predictive aiming is about the speed that we move the crosshair with, reactive aiming is about how the distance moved correlated to on-screen movement. So, for example, predictive aiming tells us that moving the mouse 5 centimeters a second moves the crosshair 30 degrees a second around. Reactive aiming tells us that 5 centimeters of real mouse movement is going to move our crosshair by 30 degrees. Now, this doesn't sound like much of a difference, but it is huge in actual games, and I'll go into that later. Reactive aiming is not looking at where your target is right now, and where it will be in a second. It's knowing where your crosshair is, where it needs to be, and how far you need to move your mouse to get it there. You don't need to predict anything. So predictive aiming uses the current speed of the target to calculate how fast we need to move our mouse. Reactive aiming, on the other hand, uses the current position of our target and the current position of our crosshair and calculates the distance between the two into real distance we need to move with our mouse. The more often our brains can do that calculation, the more precise our aim becomes. It's basically like flicking very short distances very often, whereas predictive aiming is more like making smooth, constant motions that we need to adjust regularly. So how do Anabots, or other bots for that matter, screw with our aim? Bots in the practice range move very predictably, and if they don't, their distance doesn't change. They move around you for the most part, and eventually you will aim at them because you just learned how fast you need to move your crosshair to keep your crosshair on them. That's really great in these synthetic situations and when they don't change directions a lot, but it is a skill that becomes more and more useless the higher you go in rating, as people tend to walk in less predictable ways. Now, you can make the bots move more erratic by positioning yourself on high ground, as seen in this GIF created by Nizia from Overwatch University. However, this only works when you are on high ground. If you're on the ground with them, they will move predictably again. Aiming straight at someone compared to shooting down on someone is completely different, because you need to move the mouse more, causing you to over-aim in actual games. This is pretty mathematical, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but you can read up on it if you just search around a bit. Don't think that Anabots are completely useless though. It's just that they don't prepare you as well for real games, and that there are many more efficient ways to practice the same stuff without missing out on a lot of the other aspects important to aiming. Anabots allow you to work on the fundamentals in a low stress environment, which helps you focus. However, they fall short in preparing you for high pressure situations where the enemies are actively trying to dodge your shots, and good opponents will force you into these kinds of situations a lot more than you may think. Now, we humans don't start picking up bad habits until we repeat something for a relatively long time. So if you just want to warm up, Anabots are completely fine. They get you used to your mouse again and make you feel less stiff. But if you shoot Anabots for more than 20 to 30 minutes, you just start building bad habits that will screw you over in the long term. If you do it for too long, your brain will adjust to the way you need to aim at these bots, and when you switch to real opponents, you'll get screwed. Not only this, but bots don't teach you verticality either. Not only do the bots move perpendicular to you most of the time, they also don't change their elevation that often. Especially a good Genji player will always be at a different height, something that you can't accurately achieve in a custom game. Sure, you could put yourself on high ground as you shoot down on the bots, but then you will just get used to that static elevation, instead of being able to adjust to different amounts of vertical aiming. Now, a lot of people say that they get excellent results with Ana bots, and that they feel a lot more comfortable in their aim after doing it for a bit. And that is true and not placebo or anything, but those are short-term effects. They are fixing the symptoms, not the root cause. Of course, if you warm up by shooting bots, your aim will get temporarily better, but just like in real sports, stretching your muscles once isn't going to make you a good athlete in the long run. You sleep for a night or take a break and you're back at square one. Don't mistake being warmed up with being good at aiming. I think this is actually the reason why so many people got into Ana bots. It gave quick results, so people just kept on doing it without thinking of the long-term effects. In the short term, it's really good warm-up, but it won't give you the full package in the long run. So how can we fix this? Obviously you can keep using Ana bots or the practice range solely for warming up, but I think there are some really good alternatives. First of all, if you want to practice your long-term aim and your fundamentals, do not exclusively practice against bots. The only way to get better at shooting people is by shooting people. If there is any pattern in what you're practicing with, you won't learn how to dynamically adjust to situations, which is a key skill. Ana bots prepare you for some very specific situations, but they don't prepare you at all for others. If you try to use your practice skills from bot practice against a strafing McCree, you'll just cry. One way you can work on your aim is by going into a custom game with friends. Not only do both of you benefit from doing this, but you are dealing with an actual human being. Obviously it's best if you do this against a good player, as his movement will be a lot less predictable and erratic, whereas lower ranked players won't be able to challenge you much more than the bots would. Keep in mind that I'm talking about custom game 1v1s with friends, not aim servers. Aim servers rely a lot more on positioning than aim, meaning that it can be distracting. 1v1s with friends are amazing to get into a situation with slight pressure on you, and it is amazing to get used to your strafe pattern and allow you to disconnect your movement from your aim and make them as independent as possible. Keep in mind that aim in Overwatch is very pure and raw. There is no acceleration to movement like in Counter-Strike. This means that quickly changing directions requires you to aim and react fast, as it's not predictable. In Counter-Strike, movement is completely different, and predictive aiming is a lot more prevalent than just reacting quickly. Although I am no CS expert, so feel free to correct me on this one. Another thing I would like to mention is a neat little tool that I and some Korean pro players use. It's called Aim Hero. Now, this can be a bit of a trap, so I want to explain to you how I and others use it to practice and warm up extremely efficiently and why it's so good. Now, disclaimer, I am not being sponsored by these people. As far as I know, they're like some Russian people who just put their app on the store. Yes, I just wanted to make that clear, okay? I use it personally, and I don't just want to, shout them out or anything. I don't even know them. Now, first you need to make sure to set your settings right. It allows you to put in your exact Overwatch sensitivity and crosshair, which is extremely helpful, and it also allows you to change your FOV. Make sure it's set to 71, as the game uses vertical field of vision for this setting instead of horizontal like Overwatch does. 71 vertical FOV is the same as 103 horizontal FOV. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're still playing against the computer, and more importantly, you aren't even moving around. What does this have to do with the game? And this is where I would like to explain a bit. Ignore every single mode in this game except Reflex. They are all trash and don't really help you out. Or, at least they didn't help me out, to be honest. The game mode you want to choose is Reflex. You can start on one of the lower difficulties if you want, but I think medium is best of both worlds. Now, first of all, how is this better than bots? The way the reflex training works is that it shows you a blank wall, and in a rhythmic pattern, targets are going to appear that you need to very quickly flick to and shoot. The difference to bots is that this is completely unpredictable. If a bot is at a certain position, he can't really be that far away from that position in the next frame. Here, however, the next target could be on the other end of the wall compared to the last one. You should always reset your crosshair to the center to minimize the average distance you need to flick. And since you don't know where the target is going to appear, you're constantly being challenged, and there is no way to actually learn the pattern. Also, the targets don't appear on just the horizontal like in Overwatch. Sometimes you need to flick upwards, sometimes downwards, sometimes a very short distance, sometimes a longer distance. So it translates a lot better to shooting characters like Genji or Pharah or a Lucio that's wall riding. And lastly, but you don't move in that game. And that's exactly the point. We want to work on our pure aim, getting the crosshair on the target as fast as possible using just our mouse. When playing against bots, you will eventually match your own movement with that of the bots. This makes aiming at them a lot easier, and even if you don't notice it, it's something that you just do subconsciously. Now, don't get me wrong, using movement to make aiming easier is very important in an actual game, but it just hinders you from practicing pure aim. Not being able to move here is a lot better, as your performance relies on your precision with a mouse, not how you can abuse the predictability of the enemy's movement. I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can get an older version of the app. If, however, you want the most current version, I recommend you to check out their Steam page and, support them, I guess. They're adding new stuff to it constantly, or at least that's what, they're saying on their Steam page. So if you like the old version, you should check out the new one as well. Now, enough of that. Let's just get to the conclusion. There are two types of aiming, predictive and reactive. Predictive is about memorizing how speed translates from the mouse to the game, whereas reactive aiming is about memorizing the distance traveled of the mouse and how that affects the game. Reactive movement is what you need to practice, and the only way to do that is by queuing up for the game, going to custom games with friends, or using third-party apps like Aim Hero. Shooting ANA bots will improve your aim in the short term, but it can also create bad habits and ultimately make you plateau very fast in the long run. Flick shots happen so fast that movement is irrelevant. That's where applications like Aim Hero shine a lot, as they offer you a sterile environment that gives you no chance of predicting anything, and no way to make aiming easier using movement. 1v1ing friends helps you compensate for your strafe pattern and deal with pressure situations, and simply playing the game or shooting bots from time to time helps you gain mouse control that comes in useful when dealing with jumping or falling enemies, or those who just move in straight lines. Anabots don't give you good aim. 1v1s don't give you good aim, and Aim Hero won't give you good aim. Combining them all, however, while not neglecting playing the game itself, is what will lead to truly consistent and impressive accuracy. The title of this video is not how Anabots only fuck up your aim, it's how Anabots only fuck up your aim. I hope this video was helpful to some of you. If you have any questions, feel free to write it down in the comments. I will make sure to answer all of them if possible. Also check out my Twitter. I'm trying to get into all this social media mumbo jumbo, so if you want to help me out with it, you can follow or tweet me some dank memes. Also, make sure to check out our Discord. We are quickly approaching 1,000 members, which is pretty sick. So if you want to find a team or scrims or just ask some questions to me and the others, feel free to check it out. My name is Aerostax, and I'd like to thank you for learning.